Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sibling Soapbox Podcast. My name is Heather Evans, here with my brother.
I'm Tristan Venture, and today we are super excited to have a special guest with us, and we are going to jump on the Sibling Soapbox with her. Can't wait to show you this exciting episode. Get ready.
Here we go.
The Sibling Soapbox Podcast.
We are so excited today. We have a very special guest. She is an author of a book titled Stolen Moments, Coping with Loss from Multiple Sclerosis. Her name is Paulette Ren. And Paulette, welcome to the Sibling Soapbox Podcast today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We are very happy to have you. And so we are just going to start diving in. We're grateful that you decided to come with us today because this book is so touching and such a beautiful love story. So I wanted to first start by asking you to tell a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised in Pocatello, Idaho. Went to school there at Pocatello High and went on to Idaho State University for a couple years. Then I met my husband, we got married, we moved to California, we were there for a little while, and then came back to Utah, and this is where I've been pretty much the rest of the time. I grew up in a big family, we had 9 kids, it was always kind of crazy, and I live now in Utah, Draper, Utah, which is kind of a suburb of Salt Lake City, and I have 3 children and 9 grandkids. And they all happen to live here now, so it's been absolutely wonderful for me. It's a blessing because I get to see them all the time. And I do spend a lot of time with them. So that part is just really fun.
And just so our audience knows, we are related through family. And your husband was our father's cousin. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you knew this, but our father really looked up to him. He was kind of an idol for our dad, and he mentioned that recently and how he was enamored with him and he thought he was the coolest guy in the world and wanted to be just like him when he got older. So very, very special relationship through our family. And I think he was an inspiration for many people.
Well, I know your dad had mentioned that to me because he said he always loved the way he dressed and the way he was. And that was really cute, I thought. So, yeah, they had a good relationship. He loved his cousins. You know, they were all very close, as you all know, and they had some good relationships. It was very fun.
Yeah, that's a strong Italian family.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
Love
And
it.
so, Paulette, what inspired you to write this book and to share your personal story? I know it's a little bit of an autobiography. I love the book. There are so many really touching moments in it throughout. And just hearing your journey is an inspiration as a writer.
Well, thank you. Well, you know, I always wanted to write a book. I don't know. I've never been really into writing. I've journaled a little bit, done a few things like that. But as life went on, I felt like we had a lot of stories that maybe would inspire somebody or help them, especially as my husband got diagnosed with MS. And so I wanted to write, but I didn't even know where to begin. So I took a couple community classes, and it kind of helped me get started with the ideas of what to do. And then down the road, I met Richard Paul Evans, who is my mentor, and he was at a book signing, and I was talking to him about, you know, wanting to write and all that kind of stuff. And just about that time, he was getting ready to start a new group to help young writers, because he's written almost 50 books, and he was going to share his experience with us. And I thought, gosh, that sounds good. So eventually I went to some of his book retreats. He has a ranch in kind of by Zion's National Park. Beautiful, beautiful ranch. And he every summer he has 3 or 4 different retreats. And they're just wonderful. He gives you pointers, how to write, what to do. And then there's all the other writers there. So everybody's very supportive and helpful. And so after the first retreat that I went to, you just get to know everybody, and they're so helpful. And it just got me focused. and I started writing, and I joined his Author Ready group when they first started, and every week we meet. Like, we meet every Tuesday on a Zoom call where we kind of critique each other. You know, we might read 5 minutes of something we've written, and then the others will critique you. And then he comes in twice a month, and gives us more lessons on, different areas, depending on what's going on. It could be marketing, it could be writing your book, it could be figuring out how to do the cover, inside, all that kind of stuff. And so it's been really helpful. So that's kind of basically where it all started, and kind of just went from there. And eventually I got it all done and got it published. So I published in 2023 my book. So, and I am working on another one, but I have been procrastinating a little bit and haven't quite got it done like I wanted to. So eventually it'll come out. So that's kind of where it all started.
Well, I consumed your book. I literally sat down and could not put it down. It was so beautifully written. You did such a great job. For
Thanks.
our listeners, the book is about your journey with your husband's multiple sclerosis diagnosis. And if you could just share a little bit with all of us, what is MS?
Yes. Well, MS is a crippling disease, and unfortunately there's no cure at this time. But they have come a long way. There's lots of medicines out there now that really help with a lot of the symptoms. What it is it's kind of almost like an autoimmune disease where it eats away at the myelin sheath, which is the nerve coverings, and it can affect the spine, the brain, and what happens is once those are stripped away, it causes weakness, it causes tingling, can cause eye problems, it can cause instability in walking, all kinds of different things that are very difficult to deal with. Exacerbations, which are kind of like a seizure almost. But like I said, they've come a long way from when my husband had it. They had very few things they could do back then. But it's diagnosed through MRIs or spinal taps or even eye exams. And once you're diagnosed, then you just have to learn how to deal and what to do to help your life and to make it easy. So it's a very interesting disease because it affects almost everything in your body at some point in time. My husband was very fortunate because he went through periods of time and then he went into remission. And when he was in remission, he was able to do things again. And he's been very lucky for that, but until the very end, about the last 3 years were really tough. But it's a very interesting disease. It's a very touching, it's something people really have to learn about and see how to adjust and make the best of it.
Yeah, and incredibly challenging for the primary caregiver, which was you, of course. And through that experience, Paulette, and through all of your experiences that you mentioned in your book, one of the things that touched me most was your resilience and your ability to keep a positive outlook and maintain faith in, looking forward in life. And when life threw you, challenges and difficulties, you persevered. And I think so many people, would fall into a victim mentality. And I would just love it if you could share with us kind of your secret of how did you stay so positive during those challenging times?
Well, the first thing I learned, and this is a really important thing, and it's hard for people, but you've got to accept your circumstances. So say we're diagnosed, and this could be typical of any disease, anything, but you've got to think, okay, this has been diagnosed, now what do we do? And the most important thing, I think, is to read about it, find out everything you can about the disease so you know what to expect. When we first came out, of course, we didn't have computers like all this, and, we'd look things up in the library or whatever. But we tried to find out everything we could because I didn't know anything about MS until that happened. And I think that that's really a very important part. And then you as a caregiver have to learn to be strong so that you can take care of them. Because if you can't take care of yourself and feel positive and hopeful, it's very difficult for the person who has it. So I've just always been quite a positive person. I try really hard to stay up and find the best of it. And we went through many, many things, but we had a good life. We really had a good life. And I think you just have to learn to live with what it is and make the best of it. And we got where we could adjust, if we had a good day, that was good. We'd do things. If it wasn't so good, we wouldn't, And I think that's kind of typical of most diseases. But it really helps to just stay on top of it. And you got to take care of yourself as well as them. So that's a big part.
And just to follow up on that, Paula, I know you had some challenges that you mentioned in the book earlier in your life. Do you feel like those prepared you kind of for God's plan or whatever plan life had for you that helped you through that difficulty?
Well, I think that, you look at your life and you never think some of these kind of things are going to happen. But, as life went on and we discovered these things, and even with my health issues that I had at the time, we just learned to cope and we learned to do the best we could. And as my husband got worse, which was probably his last couple of years were really tough because he ended up in a hospital bed and everything. And I was working at that time for Delta Airlines, and my kids were absolutely a wonderful support. What they would do is each one of them would come over one night, help feed him, take care of him, be with him, and just share moments. It was very bonding for them. Plus, it helped me so that I could still work at that point and continue on. And, there were times when I got burned out and I thought, oh, I can't do this. But, we had so much help and so much support from family and friends and eventually hospice, which is an absolutely wonderful organization. They are just amazing. They come in and help you do all kinds of things you need to do. They can help you make beds and shower and take care of them, or you do part and they do part. And so we were very fortunate because we were able to leave him at home because of that and take very good care of him. So, you kind of learn to do what you didn't think you'd know how to do. I mean, it's kind of amazing how when you have to do something, you step up, And we just all adjusted really well. Excuse me. And, my kids were just a godsend. I don't know what I would have done without them. They were all a little bit older by then, college age and that. And they were just so good. And it was such a remarkable time for my husband, too, because he got to share those special moments with them alone. And that was really, really very, very much a blessing. So,
yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because one of the things that really touched me in your book was I saw you as and you are still this very strong woman. And you shared in your book a lot of your health issues that you were facing. So to be dealing with that on your own and also caring for your husband, that had to have been so difficult. So I appreciate even now that you're sharing how you got through that, and the fact that your family was so supportive in all of that. And you'll also talk about leaning on your faith, and then hospice. I believe that's just such a godsend to a lot of people, and maybe people who don't have to go that route don't understand. We, with our mom, with her breast cancer, had some hospice in the end, and it was so helpful and also therapeutic for us because they do share a lot about the psychological journey. So I'm so glad that you had that.
Yes.
Was there anything else that helped you with as you were facing your own health issues besides family?
I think I tried really hard to just accept everything and try to make the best of it and try to figure out how our life could still be good. You know, even if when we reached a point where we couldn't do some of the things we always did, we still had some great times. Like, you know, as my husband got worse and he started losing his eyesight, he ended up being paralyzed from the neck down eventually. And so his mind was clear as a bell. I mean, he was just sharp as could be, but he just couldn't move and do things. So I would read to him when we got to the point where he couldn't watch TV anymore. And we'd go for walks around the neighborhood in his wheelchair, and, you know, just things to keep the day so it wasn't so long, you know, because I mostly, when I went to work for Delta, worked at night. So I had the daytime with him, and then the kids would be there at night. And so, you know, you just kind of learn to do what you need to do to try to make each other happy. I mean, you know, you just want to make the best life you can. And we did. So that was always good.
So admire your strength through all of this.
Thank you.
And through all of those challenges, Paulette, was there ever a time that you kind of questioned your faith? And I know that one of your sons, you had mentioned, had some difficulty, as we all would in that situation of, you know, why would God let this happen? How did you guys overcome those obstacles and kind of reignite your faith?
Well, you know, I think when anything does happen to you, something as serious as a diagnosis like that, you can't help but question a little bit. You know, at first you're thinking, why is this happening? But then, you know, your faith comes back to you, and you know, I believe in God. I was raised Catholic. My kids were raised Catholic. I always said prayers. You know, I was always very spiritual. And, you know, eventually you think, you know, you can't sit and say, why me? Or, you know, it's just, everybody has something. Every family you talk to has something. So eventually, I would pray a lot. I prayed a lot to God and just said, you know, help me know what I should do. How can I help? What do we need to do to keep moving? And I would get the answers. I mean, eventually, you know, it was just, we do whatever we needed to do. And so I think the faith definitely makes a huge difference in your life. You know, you've got to have faith in God, and just, you know, we never know why some of these things happen or why they happen to us. But I'm a firm believer in things are meant to be for a reason. And we learn so much going through this whole time with him. And it's made me, I think, a better person. And I always try to be very kind to people. I'm very empathetic. I really feel a lot for people when they're going through things. And I've learned to be a big hugger. I hug people a lot. You know, I think you just need a hug. You just need, and give them a big, good hug and say, you know, you can do this. You know, so that's kind of where I am now. So yeah, without God, we would never be here. So he was there for us, without a doubt.
That is beautiful. I wanted to touch on a part of your book that I thought was so incredible and beautiful. And you talked about moments in his last days when he would see spirits, like his Nona and Nono. And even the part that just touched me the most was him having a beer with your mom. Can you share that part of your story?
I'll tell you, I really learned to be a believer. Absolutely believe in spirits, you know. He would, you know, usually I'd go wake him up about 9 o'clock in the morning. And one morning I could hear him in there talking, and I went in and he says, I said, good morning. And he says, is Nona still here? And Nona was his grandma, and he was extremely close to his Nona. And I said, well, I don't see her. I always kind of went along with whatever. And he kind of looks around and he said, there she is over there in the chair. And I said, oh, okay. And then a lot of times he would be talking to somebody. I'd walk in the room and he'd be talking to somebody, you know, just that's already gone. And I just kind of, okay. Well, one morning, this cracks me up. It's really funny because one morning I went in at about 9 o'clock and I said, good morning. I said, what sounds good for breakfast? And he says, how about a beer? And I said, "Sure." And he said, "I just had one with your mom, and it was so refreshing. I'd like another one." And I thought, oh my God, my mom loved beer. She loved her beer. And I could just see the two of them sitting there just chatting away, having their beer. So I said, okay, beer instead of coffee this morning. So, I really believe that our spirits are around us when the time comes. I think they're there to help transition over, probably more for them than for us, but it's very comforting to me to know that they're like, take my hand, we're ready to go, and take them. And I always picture, of course, this is probably the Italian side, I always picture them up there having this big party with all the good food and all the things they love, and they're just so happy to be there with them now. So yeah, I became a believer, definitely became a believer.
Oh,
So
that is so
beautiful.
beautiful.
Makes me cry.
Aw.
It's just when he wanted a beer, I just knew. I said, "Yep, it's real, it's real." So yeah, that part is so funny.
That's so interesting. And I know in the book you had mentioned earlier in your life that you had kind of delved into a little bit of the esoteric stuff with astrology and different things, palmistry, I think you had mentioned. Could you share a little bit about that experience and maybe how later when you did have the experience with him seeing relatives or spirits, maybe it kind of opened your eyes more to it?
It did. I've always been quite intuitive, and I've always just been interested in those kind of things. And, I took classes and studied and learned how to do a bunch of that stuff. It was just kind of a side hobby, I guess we could say, but it was always really fun. And it always amazed me how accurate it was. And there's one story in my book that you might get a kick out of this. I hadn't been able to get pregnant, and so there was a class on birth control, an astrology class on birth control. I thought, I think I'm going to go to that. This is so funny because it helped me to plan when to get pregnant and even to pick out what sex. And I went and set it out, and we talked about it, and I thought, of course he thought I was a little crazy. All my kids thought I was a little crazy with all that. But anyway, I ended up getting pregnant, and I predicted it was a boy, and that's when Brandon was born, my oldest son. And everybody was just like in shock, like, and I think I made him a little nervous, thinking, "Oh, really? How does she know that stuff?" And I don't
Wow.
know. I think the more you delve into stuff like that, or just like anything, you become more intuitive and more tuned in, and to the vibrations of the earth and everything too. And I think that's what happened with that. So it was fun. I always enjoyed it, and I still to this day do check out a lot of things like that. But
Do you?
it's
That's
fun.
what I wanted to ask. Are you still interested? Because we call it the woo-woo. Tristan
Yeah.
and I have talked about this, sort of the woo-woo side of things, which I loved this about you because you can have your faith and your religion, but to be open to other things like that. I was fascinated that you are.
Well, a lot of people, they think when you're religion, they don't believe in all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But what I have found is you're not replacing your faith that you have. You're enhancing. You're enhancing some of the things. So some of the things you learn through faith, which are also very spiritual in so many ways, it just helps you enhance and make it, easier to understand and to understand people. And so I always have tried to stay open to, I'm very open to most anything, all religions, I have a lot of respect for different people and the things they believe in. And so, that it's just, I just find it very fascinating.
I love that. And you may have some people who comment in the future on this, wondering some of the secrets for dealing with infertility and maybe pulling in astrology as some help.
It's been a lot of years on that one, but yes, I may. But
What a beautiful story.
It's quite fascinating, though. I find it very fascinating, and you learn a lot.
I love that. I love that you're able to, share with our audience that you could keep your faith and your religion and also be open to other things, because we talk a lot about in our podcast about people being more open to other ideas. And especially now that we live in the information age with the internet and everything, you can learn so much about other people and other things. And I think you have mentioned in your book that one of your sons, when he considered the Mormon faith and how, that was a little challenging for you. Could you speak on that a little bit and how you kind of overcame it?
That was a very big thing in our life. My son Ryan, he was the youngest one. He was in college, and we live in Utah, so we've been around Mormons all our life. Great people, love them, and he had great friends, and never thought anything of it. Just we were Catholic, they were Mormon. It's okay, whatever. They all got along. Well, when he was at the fraternity house, and the guys all would kind of talk about God and their existence, and they were kind of at that age where you're trying to find yourself and what you want to do, and so one of his friends got him to read the Book of Mormon, and he told me that he was reading it, and I thought, oh, that's okay, study any religion, and keep your mind open, understand other people. Well, the next thing I know, he comes and says, Mom, I want to be baptized in the Mormon church. And I said, oh, that part was a little bit of a shock, because, we'd raised him Catholic, and, you kind of thinking, gee, what have I done? Maybe I missed out somewhere on here that I should have done something different. And we talked about it, and we didn't talk to his dad about it yet, about all that. But at that point, his dad was in a hospital bed, and so he was home all the time. So anyway, so Ryan decided he wanted to be baptized, and he did get baptized. And I told him, I said, Ryan, if you're doing this for the right reasons, I don't have a problem. I don't want you to do it just because you want to marry a Mormon girl or something. I want you to do it for the right reason. If you're doing it for the right reasons, I can accept it. But I said, I want you to, when you come home, I don't want you to preach to me. I don't want you to try to convert me. I said, if we're having a glass of wine with dinner, I don't want you to say, oh, you shouldn't drink that, because they have their own thing. And I respect their beliefs, believe me. And I just said, as long as you can still be Ryan and be our son, I don't have a problem. And he was very, very good about that. Very, very good about that. He'd tease us and do different things, but he never pushed or did anything. And then this is the hardest part. After my husband got put on hospice and they couldn't do anything else for him, they told him he'd live maybe 6 months or so. And just about that time, after Ryan had been baptized for a little while, he came to me and he says, Mom, I want to go on a mission. And I said, that's all fine, but now's not the time. I said, we don't know how much time we have with your dad. And he said, well, it'll probably be a while, And the little stinker put in his papers and got called to go to Sao Paulo, Brazil. And this was just the last few months of his dad's life. And that was really hard on us, because we thought, no, wait. And then he was torn between knowing he should go help God with his mission work and then be there with his dad. And so the whole family had a really hard time with that. That took a little bit of getting used to. So anyway, he got called, and he had told his dad all this as we went along, as he got baptized and that. But he went to his dad and he said, Dad, I don't know what to do. He said, I want to go on a mission, but I don't want to leave you. And his dad said, Ryan, you're a grown-up guy now. He said, you do what you need to do and don't wait for me.
Wow.
And so with that, he ended up going on his mission. He had to go to the MTC, which is where they train and stuff in Provo, and learn Portuguese. So he was there until about November of that year. And then he flew out. We gave him a farewell, and he flew out. And when he flew out, we were able to take his dad to the airport in a wheelchair, and they had a really touching talk. And he knew that would be the last time they'd see each other. And so he went off, and in December, my husband died. And of course, Ryan hadn't been gone that long, so we felt really crushed. And I thought, so I called the mission president and said, would you let him come home for the funeral? I said, I realize, he's a convert, and I know it's a little different, and I know you don't normally do that. But I said, it would mean a lot to me. And I said, I work for the airline, so I pay for him to come home. And I said, if you would let him come for a week, I'll make sure he comes back. And, I have to give them credit. They were wonderful. They were so wonderful. They called me and said, if this is what you really want, we will allow it. So he was able to come home for the funeral and be with the family for that week. And then after that, we were able to accept him being there and wrote him letters every week and all that. So, but it was that part was a very touching and hard part for all of us. But it worked out, now he's home and he married, has 4 children, and he's just a wonderful son, So it's good.
And I love that he had your blessing with his new religion, but also your husband's. That had to have been such an important part of this.
Well, we just didn't know how, my husband would react. But when he first got baptized, then he went and talked to him, and he said, you do what you want to do. And then we were all kind of shocked. We just thought, oh, well, okay. So he did his thing, but it was wonderful. And he learned a lot, and he's been a wonderful son. So I can't complain at all.
And was this before or after your husband was blessed by the Pope? Maybe you could share a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I love that story.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, let me tell you, that was,
incredible.
He always wanted to go to Italy because he was Italian. And so both the boys were in college, and my daughter was already working. She was doing her internship. She's a nurse practitioner. And so she couldn't go with us, but we decided to plan a trip to Italy, and this was before. So we got a wheelchair because he was still walking at that time, but he was kind of struggling. And if you've ever been to Rome or any of those places, you won't do a lot of walking. So we got this old wheelchair from his dad, which is hilarious. It's one of those old-fashioned ones. Oh, my gosh. It was very interesting on cobble streets, let me tell you. So we got to Italy, and we had a private gal that took us around on tour. And it was just wonderful, and he loved it. And he loved going to St. Peter's Basilica and the Sistine Chapel. And then we happened to be there the day that the Pope does I think it was like on a Wednesday at that time, where they come and speak to the people. And then they come around in their little Pope mobile, I call them Pope mobile, and bless people. And we had gotten there really early, so we were right in front, right by where they come by. And it was a really hot day, and I was so worried that, he wouldn't make it through, because I thought, oh, it's going to be hard on him sitting in that sun. But when it started, it was just amazing. And the Pope came, and we had him in his wheelchair right in the very first section there. And the Pope stopped and gave him a blessing. And it was and I've got a wonderful picture of it. It was so heartwarming. And I think it just gave him hope and made him, he just shined, it was so awesome. So that was a really great experience that we got to do that. And at least he got to see some of the, we didn't get to go right where the relatives were born, but we at least got to see a lot of Italy, which he loved. And it was really, we're very lucky we got to do it. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Such a
Wow.
beautiful story, too. And it just ties everything in with your spiritual part of your journey with this. And that's incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. And even after that, there was a pilgrimage going on with a bunch of people from different countries. And somebody came up to him in his wheelchair and gave him a medal. And they said, God bless you. And, it was just like, oh, my gosh, it was just a really... just high vibes around everybody. It was just really awesome. Yeah. So that was very, very
you
wonderful.
Both, I feel like you probably both attracted that at the time. You still attract that.
So magical, just incredible. What an experience.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And Paulette, so through your book, you talk about how you kind of maintain, your independence as a woman and also, having a career and being able to do that, while having children and your husband being a caregiver. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how you persevered and maintained kind of your own identity and working for Delta Airlines? I think you said, was it 14 years?
14 years, yeah. As the years went on, I knew that there was a good chance that I might have to step forward a little more. So I started looking around to decide where would be a good place to go to work. And the airlines was one thing that really appealed to me. So I applied at the airlines. I actually originally went to work for Continental Airlines for a couple years before Delta, but they closed their office, and so I, anyway, ended up at Delta, which, it was the best thing for me. It gave me self-confidence. I realized I could make good money. It was a company that had great benefits, had medical, had flying benefits, paid well. And so I was very fortunate. I got on. It was the best thing I ever did because I felt like I was contributing because obviously as my husband got worse, he got where he couldn't work. And so it was a really good thing. And I loved it. I loved working there. It was very fun. And so, yeah.
Well, I have to say, your husband was a very lucky person to have you as, his partner through life, because that is a blessing. I could not imagine being in that situation. And, to have someone like you, Paulette, that is so strong, caring, giving, empathetic, what a blessing for him to have that. I'm sure he's eternally grateful for all that you've done.
Thank you. I know he was, I know he appreciated it all, and he never complained a lot, so it was a good thing, but I think he had lots of love between his family and, his mom and dad and his brothers and then all of us, it was very, very rewarding. So thank you. I appreciate that.
And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about, I actually have some friends who have lost their spouses recently, and I see them in the same, like a similar strength that you have and finding their way again. And I call it sort of their act 2 in life. You took your vows, you took them very seriously through, in sickness and in health, and then you are alone and starting another chapter in your life. So I want to tell you how impressed I am. Your new chapter involved a dream. I don't know if you had the dream, I think maybe when you were younger, but of being a writer, which is just so impressive to me, and that you could take your story and share it with people, but also be accomplishing probably one of your dreams. And so talking about Act 2 for you now, what that's looking like. And I know you shared that you have such a close relationship with your kids and you have your grandchildren and now writing. So what would you share with other people who are freshly in this journey of finding their way after losing someone? What are some things that you could share?
Well, the one thing I found is you have to take time to grieve. And everybody grieves in a different way. And, there's some people that it takes much longer than others. You have to get through that period. You have to kind of let yourself heal physically, emotionally, spiritually a little bit. And then you got to keep busy. What I found is, and I'm very fortunate that I have my children close because I get to do a lot of things with them. I get to see them a lot. But I think that's an important part of it is you've got to keep living. You've got to go on living. You can't just, stay home and do nothing. And after he passed, I made a promise to myself that I was not going to sit around and be a grumpy old lady. I wasn't going to do it for them or for me because so many people, you get depressed, you don't want to do anything, you're just grumpy. And I thought, no, I am not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. And so that helped me a lot to just get out there, and you have to just find different things that's going to make you happy. I mean, I love being alone in so many ways. You learn a lot of things about yourself and all the things and you get to do the things that you couldn't do when you were raising kids and doing all that. You have more time to just, be lazy if you want, whatever. But that's an important part of it. I think you just have to find things that's going to help you and be happy, because I've seen a lot of people that are in denial. And, as I mentioned before about accepting your circumstances, you have to do. And the one thing that's been really hard for a lot of people that have lost their spouses is a lot of women didn't know how to take care of the books, or they didn't even know where some of their money was. They didn't know how to write up, because the husband did a lot of that. For me, I took over a lot of that. So for me, it became easier because along the way, I did a lot of that myself. But that's another thing is, some people think they don't even know where to begin. And so it's really important to talk about it. And I think with your family, it's really hard for most people to ask for help. People don't like to ask for help. But you reach a point sometimes, and especially when you're alone finally, you think, you need somebody to help you, guide you, and figure this out for you so you can live comfortably too and not worry about everything. So those are the things I found. But keeping busy is a big, big plus. And, the past is gone. We can't change it. The future, we never know what's going to happen. We hope for the best. But I've learned you've got to learn to be in the present. Enjoy each day. Maybe some simple thing like go to somebody's birthday party or go to your granddaughter's dance review, or, just different things. And you just have to enjoy the simple things in life. The fact that I have a house, I have a roof over my head, I can cook, I just, whatever, and I think that's a really important part. Just finding what works for you and keeps you living. Keeps you living. We got to do that.
That is such beautiful advice, Paulette. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. One of the things I really enjoyed about your book is at the beginning of each chapter, you have the little quotes.
Yeah.
And I love those. And there is one from Elizabeth Smart. I just wanted to share this with our audience. And it says, life is a journey for us all. We all face trials. We all have ups and downs. All of us are human, but we are also masters of our fate. We are the ones who decide how we are going to react to life. And for me, that really sums up you, Paulette, and kind of your outlook that you've shared with us today and that you share in the book. And it's so beautiful. Hopefully our audience out there and our listeners can take some of that advice and understand that, yes, that is life in a nutshell. We all face our challenges. We all, have things that come up, and it's how you deal with them on a daily basis and how you react, which really, molds you as a person. You can be the victim, or you can keep going and keep the fight up.
Yeah, exactly. And that's such an important part of life, because it's just too easy to give up, and especially as you get older too, it's even harder, because you don't have as many around you like you did when your kids were growing up and stuff. But it's just one of those things where, you've just got to find the things that make you happy and keep moving. And, you're going to have your ups and downs. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. Life never is. I mean, there's always big surprises. But, it helps a lot if you can accept some of those things and move on.
Great advice. This next segment that we have is, we call it the Soapbox Drop. And for our audience, that's just a moment where people can share their thoughts or opinions on a particular subject.
Soapbox Drop!
Paula, I just wanted to kind of lead in with a question for the Soapbox Drop for you. And that is, what is it that you value most, or what is it that you feel you're going to take with you from your life experience? What advice would you give younger generations based on what you've experienced in life?
Well, first of all, when we're young, we go through so many different things. We lack self-esteem. We're anxious. There's so many things. And the one thing I would hope that people could see is your worth. And your worth is very important. A lot of people don't realize that, I am worth being here. I'm a good person. I want to help people. And I think being kind, with all this bullying going on and stuff, which is so hard with social media, be kind to, as a young person even, just be kind to your peers, to your friends, to your people at school. And as you get older, you just have to try to appreciate people because everybody's going through something. I mean, we never know. We could look at somebody and they might seem perfect, but there's a lot of things that go on that we don't know. And I just think it's a very important thing to know that your worth's important and you can help others just by being a kind person, just by doing things for others. And it doesn't have to be a dramatic thing or, it can just be little simple things. Sit down at lunch and talk to somebody you don't know, like the kids and stuff. And I just think those things are very, very important in life because we all suffer in some ways, and we don't need to make our life any more complicated, but I just think, if you see somebody that looks really pretty, tell them they look pretty, give them a compliment, just whatever it takes. I've learned over the years that it's just so nice to have somebody smile at you and say, well, thank you. I just think those things are really, really important. So hopefully they will be.
That is beautiful, Paula. I love
it.
Oh, thank you.
You are so inspiring, Paulette. And I think that you are one of those people. We need more people like you out in the world to share your love and light. So I am very happy that we got to see you today. I wanted to ask you, I know that you had mentioned that you are in your second act of life now. You're working on another book. So tell us a little bit about that. You have kind of started it and that you're continuing a story?
Well, I will be continuing part of the story from the first book. It's not going to be like a trilogy or a series, but yeah, I will bring in things because you see, after all of this, my youngest son was diagnosed with MS when he was 30, and that's about the age his dad was. And so I wanted to bring in some of that because he's a big inspiration. He's done a lot of things. We've done a lot of things with MS over the years and stuff, and he's doing so well. And I'm going to have him write a chapter on his feelings when he was first diagnosed, because I thought it would be really good for, to see what another perspective was like. And so that will be part of the book. The rest of it, I don't know, but we'll see where to go. But I'm hoping that I can make it so that it inspires people, to just help each other and do whatever they need to do. So eventually I will have it done. I thought I'd have it done by now, but I have to admit, it's totally me. I'm procrastinating, and I get so busy and caught up in things that if I don't focus, it doesn't happen. And I know as a writer, they say you should write every day. Well, I can't quite do that, but I used to have certain days of the week where that's what I did. And I need to get back to that because with summertime, I don't know, this summer's been crazy and just a lot of things going on. So I'm hoping to get that. Eventually I'll have it out. I'll let you know that too.
Yes, please,
You are
please
living
let
life.
us know.
You're living life, and that's the most important. So,
Yes.
Well, again, we are so grateful for you being here with us today and sharing. So remember that Paulette's book, it's called Stolen Moments. Can you tell us where people can find your book and also where people can find you, if you'd like to share?
You can buy my book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, almost any place online you can order it, or at a bookstore you can order it. As far as me, I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram, and I'm also on YouTube. I have done a couple other podcasts that are on YouTube. So they can find me there. But I'm working on getting my other stuff done. Again, it's that procrastination thing. So I haven't quite got that done. So
You're living life.
That's right. The work-life balance. As a writer, it's so lonely. It's nice to be out, especially during the summertime.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to just read one thing to people here that I just feel might help for things.
Love this.
I want to just reach out to all you beautiful souls out there. I know there's so many different kinds of issues we have, whether it's illness or something else. And I know how hard it is, to accept and do. But I just want to say, be strong. Never give up hope. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And take each day as it comes. There's going to be some days where you feel fine. You do things. The next day, you're miserable. You stay home. You do whatever. And I've just found you just have to kind of take things moment by moment. If you look that and kind of plan ahead a little bit for your future, it just makes things so much easier for you so that you don't have to worry about everything. And talk about it. That's a big one because people don't like to talk about it. They don't want to think, I don't, I know a lot of people are in denial about different things, but it's really helpful. And when my husband was alive, the priest used to come in once a week and visit us. And so if I had a question that I was a little uncomfortable asking, the priest would do it. And he was fine with it. And so, like, one of the things was whether he wanted to be buried or cremated, things like that. And I know, that's not fun to talk about. You don't want to have to think about that. But if you reach a certain point, you should. And so you do need to ask for help. And so that helped us a lot. And I just found if you just try not to get discouraged and just enjoy life day by day and just count your blessings.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much,
Those are
Paulette.
Words of wisdom.
Well, you learn a lot when you go through things. You guys have been through things too, so everybody does. Everybody's got their story,
Well, I
Thank you
think
for
you're a
sharing
role
yours.
model for the rest of us, Paulette, to keep that positivity and keep faith and keep going. Boy, I think, a lot of the younger generations, they kind of give up easily and they don't have that resilience, and you have tenacity and resilience, and it's inspiring. It
Thank
really
you.
is.
Well, that's my goal. I will hope in doing the things I'm doing that I could inspire people, to just help them in their life in any little way. So
You are already. Yes.
thank you.
Thank you so much. And one thing we like to do here on the Sibling Soapbox podcast is Heather came up with this dancing at the end, a little dance out that we do kind of to create some positive vibes and release, all
Okay.
the heavy
Right.
stuff that sometimes we discuss. If I play a song, you want to dance a little?
Oh, sure.
Play it out with some joy. That's the part, right? Like we're just going to tap into some of that joy that you exude. So thank you again so much for today, Paulette. It's been wonderful.
Oh, thank you guys. I appreciate it so much. It's an honor to be on, and I'm just so grateful you asked me. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. Okay, let me see if I can get this to... And you can stand up if you want.
I'll stand.
Hey.
Thanks so much, Paulette.
Thank you guys so much. It was fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Super grateful. You're amazing.
Thank you. good luck to you guys on your podcast. I think you're going to be phenomenal. You're both so
Thank
cool.
you. If we have people like you on, we'll be very successful.
Cannot thank you enough. You were wonderful, and we mean it, like so inspiring. Your book inspired me so much as a woman. Thank you. I got so teary-eyed today.
Well,
that's a good thing.
That's okay. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like to touch those emotions.
Yeah. You're awesome.
Love you guys.
Love you too, and we'll be
Thank
back
you.
in touch with you.
All right.
Take good
Thank you.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
The Sibling Soapbox